For my 18th birthday, my parents planned a huge celebration, but it was never meant for me. They let my brother steal the entire party. So I walked out forever 1 year later. He couldn't handle my success without them, and his breakdown destroyed the family. You know that feeling when you're technically part of a family, but you always feel like the extra piece in a puzzle, the one that doesn't quite fit no matter how much you try to jam it in. Yeah, that's been my life in a nutshell. My name's Caleb, and I turned 19 last month. But this story isn't about turning 19. It's about my 18th birthday, or more specifically, the birthday party that was supposed to be mine until my older brother decided it was his again. And my parents, they let him take it. Let me rewind a bit. I grew up in a pretty normal suburban neighborhood. Think barbecue Sundays, lawn mowing Saturdays, and nosy neighbors who knew everything before you did. On the outside, my family looked picture perfect. My dad owns a small construction company, nothing flashy but enough to keep us comfortable. My mom's a high school guidance counselor, always preaching about empathy and listening, though. Ironically, never really did much of either at home. And then there's my brother Jeremy, 2 years older than me, star of the soccer team, golden boy of the family, and somehow the main character in every story, even when it wasn't his. From the time we were kids, Jeremy got everything first, and then some. First bike, first phone, first car. That part's understandable, I guess. But what stung was how even when it was finally supposed to be my turn, he'd somehow swoop in and take center stage again, and my parents would just let it happen. No worse, they'd cheer him on. I didn't used to mind it. I mean, I was the quiet kid, kept to myself, got decent grades, never really caused trouble. I figured maybe if I stayed out of the way and did my own thing, they'd notice me in their own time. They didn't. At least not in any way that mattered. Jeremy got celebrated for bringing home AC in algebra because he worked so hard. I got a full-ride scholarship to a state university and got a polite, "That's nice, honey." Before the topic changed to Jeremy's job hunt, he wasn't even looking. Still, I never really confronted them about it. I told myself it wasn't worth the drama. I bottled it up, smiled through it, played the role of the good, understanding son. But sometimes it's not just one moment that breaks you. It's the slow accumulation of little cuts. And my 18th birthday. That was the final slice that finally made everything bleed. It started innocently enough. A couple months before my birthday, Mom asked if I had any ideas for how I wanted to celebrate. Nothing fancy. I said maybe a backyard party, a few friends, some music, a bonfire, something chill. She actually seemed excited about it. Said it was a big milestone that she wanted to make it special. I remember that phrase exactly because she said it like it meant something. I started helping her plan it. We made lists who I'd invite, what kind of food to order, even talked about setting up those string lights we only brought out for 4th of July. It felt nice, like for once something was about me. I wasn't asking for a parade or anything. I just wanted to feel like I mattered. And then Jeremy came home for spring break. He was supposed to be away at college, but he dropped out a semester in, said it wasn't for him. My parents barely blinked, said they were proud of him for figuring out what he didn't want. Like that was some kind of accomplishment. Meanwhile, I was filling out scholarship essays in the same room and got a passive-aggressive comment about making sure I wasn't putting too much pressure on myself. Anyway, Jeremy came back, and immediately the entire house revolved around him again. He flopped on the couch like he never raided the fridge, left towels on the bathroom floor, and suddenly, it was like I didn't exist. My dad was back to telling old Jeremy stories at dinner, like the time he scored a winning goal in 9th grade. Mom made his favorite meals 3 nights in a row. I joked one evening that maybe I should drop out too just to get that kind of royal treatment. She laughed like I was being sarcastic. I wasn't. About a week before my birthday, everything shifted. I came home from school one day and found Jeremy and my mom in the kitchen giggling over old photo albums. He looked up at me and said, "Hey, remember my 18th party, man? That was wild." I did remember it. It was wild. They rented out a small venue, invited his entire friend group, even had a DJ. My party budget was maybe a tenth of that. But again, I didn't say anything. Then Jeremy casually dropped the bomb. "You know what, it'd be fun," he said, "if we did it again like a redo." 18 was such a blur, I'd barely remember it. Let's throw a party. But chill this time. Backyard music bonfire. I kind of want to relive it, but like slower. I froze. My mom smiled at him like he just solved world hunger. "That actually sounds like a great idea." I blinked. "Wait, what?" She looked at me almost like she forgot I was in the room. "Oh, sweetie, don't worry. We can still combine the parties. It'll be fun. You two can celebrate together." "I'm not turning 18 again," I said slowly. "I'm just turning 18. Jeremy shrugged. "Yeah, but we're both at big milestones, right? Yours is coming up. Mine's like memory lane. I mean, it's not a big deal. Chill party, both of us. What's the harm?" I looked at my mom, waiting for her to say something. Anything. Set a boundary. Remind him that this was my day. Instead, she nodded thoughtfully. You could even share the guest list. That way everyone gets along and it's more of a family event. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself too. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. That special party I'd been planning gone hijacked, absorbed into Jeremy's nostalgia tour. Over the next few days, it only got worse. Decorations I helped pick out were replaced with ones Jeremy liked better. My friend group was trimmed down because we can't invite too many people. Sweetie, it's still our backyard. A cake I wanted got vetoed for a flavor Jeremy preferred. He even asked if I'd mind playing some of his old playlists for the vibe. I started feeling like a guest at my own celebration, like a background actor in someone else's movie. My dad was no help either. When I told him I felt like I was being pushed aside, he said, "It's just one day, Caleb. Don't make it a big thing. Let your brother enjoy himself too." As if I hadn't already been sidelined for the last 18 years. The day of the party arrived. And let me tell you, it wasn't mine. From the second people showed up, they greeted Jeremy first. "Oh man, Jeremy, back from college. Didn't you turn 18 already? This your party." And he'd laugh, slap their back, say, "Nah, we're celebrating both of us today." Except no one looked at me. No one said happy birthday. Unless I reminded them. My name wasn't even on the cake. And that was just the beginning of the night. What happened next, what finally made me snap, was so ridiculous, so humiliating. I still get chills thinking about it. But I'll save that part for the next post. Let's just say I walked out of that party before the candles were lit, and I didn't come back. Not just to the party, but to them. The music was too loud. Not in a "this party's lit" kind of way, but in that overwhelming pulsing in your sinuses kind of way that makes your thoughts stutter. I stood in the corner of my own backyard, holding a plastic cup of warm soda, pretending to be engaged in a conversation I wasn't even part of. My friends were scattered across the yard, mostly huddled together in one corner near the fence, probably because they felt just as out of place as I did. Jeremy's friends, on the other hand, had taken over everything: the fire pit, the food table, even the playlist. And every time I tried to inch back into the party I helped plan, it was like trying to squeeze through a door that had already been slammed shut. I remember glancing around and thinking, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I just need to relax and let it happen. It's just one night. That's what Dad said, right? But then I saw the banner. It was strung above the patio, hung with crooked thumbtacks like someone slapped it together at the last minute. Big bold letters read, "Jeremy's 18th again." Bash with a winking emoji on the side. That stupid little winking emoji, like it was all one big joke. My jaw actually dropped. I hadn't even noticed it during setup. Probably because it was one of those last-minute surprises they threw up while I was in the garage fetching more chairs. No mention of me. Not even a joint birthday or Caleb's big day. Just Jeremy again. I walked up to my mom, who was hovering by the grill giving instructions to my uncle like she was running a wedding. "Where's the banner we made?" I asked quietly. She blinked. "What banner?" "The one with both our names. The one we printed last week. I helped you design it." "Oh," she said, brushing imaginary lint off her blouse. "Well, Jeremy said it looked kinda cluttered and we didn't want to confuse people, you know. This one's more fun." I stared at her. "So you just threw away the one we planned?" She actually had the nerve to frown like I was the unreasonable one. "Sweetheart, don't make this a big deal. Everyone knows it's your birthday too." No, they didn't. No one had said a word to me unless I said it first. Even Jeremy's friends kept giving me confused looks like I was the weird neighbor kid who accidentally wandered into the wrong party. I turned and walked back toward the fence where my friends were sitting. My best friend Kyle gave me a tight-lipped smile as I approached. "You good, man?" he asked. I forced a nod. Totally living the dream. We both knew I was lying, but he didn't press it. I appreciated that about him. We chatted a bit, trying to pretend like the night wasn't a complete disaster, when suddenly Jeremy's voice boomed from the other side of the yard. "Yo, everybody quiet down for a sec." The music cut off and the crowd hushed. He was standing on one of the patio chairs, drinking hand like he was about to deliver a State of the Union address. "I just want to say thanks for coming out tonight." He grinned. "This party means a lot to me. 18's a big deal. Yeah, I know I already hit it a couple years ago, but it's symbolic, right?" There was some cheers and laughter. My mom was clapping. My dad gave him a thumbs up. I just felt like I didn't get to really celebrate the first time. So I'm grateful my family helped me make tonight special. Thanks, Mom. "Dad, you guys are the best." Everyone clapped. I waited for him to add, "And happy birthday to Caleb, too." Or "We're celebrating my brother tonight." Anything. But no, he stepped off the chair, music resumed, and the crowd swarmed him with backpads and drinks. I felt the heat rise up my neck like a sunburn. My ears started ringing, and I wasn't sure if it was from the speakers or the blood pressure spike. That was it. That was the moment. The moment it all clicked. They didn't forget me. They just didn't care. Kyle turned to me. Dude, what? I shook my head slowly. Nah, I'm done. He stood up concerned. What do you mean? I mean, I'm leaving. Caleb, I'm done pretending this is okay. I'm not staying here just to be invisible. Before he could stop me, I walked straight through the yard, past the crowd, past the lights and the fire pit and the stupid banner. My mom saw me and raised a hand, puzzled. Where are you going? She asked. Out, I said. But we haven't done cake yet. I stopped, turned to look at her. Did you even get a cake for me? She hesitated. We got Jeremy's favorite, but it's chocolate. Everyone likes chocolate. I didn't respond. I just walked out the gate. Behind me, I could hear murmurs. Someone asked, was that his brother? Another voice replied, didn't know he was part of the party. Exactly. Kyle followed me to the street. Want me to come with? I shook my head. Nah, stay. You might actually enjoy it. He hesitated, then nodded. You sure? Yeah, I said, trying to breathe through the surge of emotions. I just need to not be here. I walked home in silence. It wasn't far, just 20 minutes on foot, but it felt longer. Every step was heavier than the last, like I was dragging years of disappointment behind me. I got to my house, unlocked the door, and went straight to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat. Because sometimes it's not anger that breaks you. It's the quiet realization that nothing's going to change unless you do something about it. I didn't go back to the party. I didn't answer their texts later that night. My phone buzzed twice, once from my mom, once from Jeremy. I didn't read them. The next morning, I woke up early. I took down every photo of Jeremy on my wall, old family trips, birthdays, his graduation. I boxed them up and shoved them in the closet. Then I went to the kitchen, made myself breakfast, and left a note on the fridge that just said, "Don't worry. I didn't forget my birthday." They didn't say anything to me for 2 days. On the third day, Mom cornered me in the hallway. Are you going to keep acting like this? I stared at her like what? Like we did something to you. We just wanted Jeremy to have a nice night too. I didn't even know what to say to that too. As if I ever got a nice night of my own. I'm your son too, I finally said. Her face felt, you're being dramatic. I walked past her without another word. That week, I started making plans. Serious ones. College was coming up and I already had that scholarship. I began looking into housing. Even though my parents said I could live at home, I didn't want to. I didn't want to owe them a thing. When I finally moved out 3 months later, my dad helped load my boxes into the car. We barely spoke. Jeremy didn't even show up. Mom hugged me goodbye. Call us if you need anything, okay? I nodded, but I didn't mean it. College was freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I made new friends, found professors who actually saw potential in me, joined a film club. I even wrote a short story about a forgotten birthday. It won second place in a campus contest. I didn't talk to my family much. They didn't ask, and I didn't offer. And then almost a year to the day after that party, I got a message. It was from Jeremy. 3 words, you think you're better. At first, I didn't even respond. But then more came. Dozens, paragraphs, accusations, whining, jealousy dripping from every line. He had seen a post someone tagged me in, something about an internship I'd landed in New York over the summer. It was a big deal. I was proud of it. And apparently so was half my college circle because they shared it like wildfire. And Jeremy, he couldn't take it. His tantrum wasn't just digital. Within days, it spilled into real life. Angry calls to my mom, passive-aggressive rants on Facebook, petty jabs during family dinners I didn't attend. He couldn't stand that I had built something without them, without him. But the worst part, the part that pushed everything over the edge, came in the form of a family group chat screenshot that Kyle sent me one night. Jeremy, in a full meltdown, had sent a message that read, I don't care if he's successful, he's still a selfish little brat who ruined my party. And made Mom cry. He thinks he's better than us because he moved out. Let's see how long he lasts without Daddy's money. And what my father replied, don't worry, he'll come crawling back when the real world hits him. That was it. That was the betrayal I didn't see coming. Because all this time I thought maybe, just maybe my dad had been the silent neutral one, the one who didn't pick sides, just wanted peace. But no, he never had my back either. And that's when I decided I was done playing nice. I had kept my distance. I had kept my head down. But now it was time they saw exactly what the forgotten son could do. There's a strange silence that follows betrayal. Not the kind you get when someone slaps you in the face, but the kind that settles in when someone you trusted lets you down in a way you didn't expect. I always knew Jeremy resented me in some way. That wasn't news. But seeing my dad, my own father, essentially agree with him, that hit harder than anything else. Not because I needed his money, I didn't. I was already making it on my own. But because deep down, a small part of me still believed he might come around. That maybe once I got out and showed them I was serious, someone in that house would finally say we were wrong. That illusion shattered with that message. He'll come crawling back when the real world hits him. Those were the words that played on loop in my head that night. I was in my dorm sitting on the edge of my twin bed, phone screen burning my retinous heart somewhere between rage and resignation. I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't scream. I just sat there very still as the weight of that sentence sank in, crawling back as if I had ever leaned on them. As if I hadn't spent years being overlooked, dismissed, shoved aside for the golden boy with the dimming halo. It was in that moment I realized something important. I wasn't running away from them anymore. I was running towards something else, something better, something that didn't require their approval. But before I could climb, I had to fall first. And believe me, I did. My second semester hit like a brick wall. The excitement of freedom wore off fast and the pressure of proving myself crept in hard. Between classes, my part-time job at a student cafe and the internship applications I kept sending into the void, I barely slept. There were nights I'd fall asleep on my laptop, wake up with keyboard marks on my cheek and a half-finished essay blinking on the screen. Money was tight. My scholarship covered tuition and housing. But food, books, clothes, that was all on me. I remember one week I lived on oatmeal and peanut butter because I'd miscalculated my budget after buying a textbook that cost more than my winter jacket. I didn't tell anyone, not even Kyle. I just pushed through it day by day. I told myself, this is temporary. They think you'll fail. Prove them wrong. I worked the early shift at the cafe every Friday and Sunday, which meant waking up at 5:30 a.m., walking through freezing slush just to serve burnt coffee to hungover seniors. Some mornings I questioned whether it was worth it, whether I should just quit and take the easier path. Go home, let them forgive me, pretend nothing ever happened. But then I'd remember the party, that banner, that cake, that message from my dad, and I'd dig in harder. Rock bottom wasn't a single moment for me. It was a slow grinding season, a string of days that blurred together. Each one just a little heavier than the last. But even in that darkness, small sparks started to appear. I joined the film club officially in February. I'd gone to a few meetings in the fall, but now I committed. I started writing short scripts, helping other students with their projects, learning how to operate the club's camera equipment. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who didn't compare me to anyone else, who saw me as Caleb, not Jeremy's brother. It was jarring being heard, being asked for input, being respected. One weekend, a senior named Maya asked if I wanted to help her shoot a short film for a student contest. She said she liked the way I edited a documentary segment for the club's YouTube channel. It's subtle, she told me. You know how to tell a story without yelling. I didn't even know how to respond to that. We spent 2 weeks filming her project. Long nights, barely any sleep. Lots of bad cafeteria coffee, but it was fun. I felt useful. I felt good when the film won 3rd place. She handed me the certificate like it was mine too. You saved this thing, she said. Seriously, you've got a gift. Those words stuck with me more than any birthday card I'd ever received. Around that same time, my screenwriting professor pulled me aside after class. You've got something, he said. You see the emotional layers even in small moments. That's rare. He offered to mentor me, help me clean up a script, and submit it to an undergraduate writing fellowship. It was competitive. Only 3 people got in each year. I wasn't expecting much, but I applied anyway. In the meantime, I picked up an extra shift at the cafe. I started tutoring kids in English composition at the student center. I helped Maya with another film project. I filled every spare hour with something that pushed me forward inch by inch. I didn't post about any of it. Not on Instagram, not on Twitter. I wasn't trying to flex or show off. I wasn't interested in proving anything yet. I just wanted to build something solid, something real on my own terms. That's why it was such a shock when my internship announcement blew up. See, the campus had this digital bulletin board where students could share accomplishments. I posted about landing a summer internship at this mid-sized production studio in Manhattan. Not a huge name, but respected in indie film circles. I didn't think anyone outside my department would even notice. But Maya reposted it. Then the film club account did. Then one of my old high school friends shared it on Facebook with a caption like, "Look who's making moves." And just like that, it spread. That's when Jeremy saw it. I hadn't spoken to him in almost a year. Hadn't texted him. Hadn't responded to anything he sent. But that post that set him off like I'd committed some kind of crime by succeeding without his permission. He sent me a storm of texts, angry, bitter, insecure. He accused me of trying to make him look bad, of being fake, of turning the family against him by ghosting everyone. He said I was a show-off, that I only got the internship because they need diversity. I'm mixed, half Filipino on my mom's side. Not that he ever acknowledged that part of me growing up. But the most telling message, the one that showed me exactly where his head was. You've always been jealous of me. Admit it. I stared at that line for a long time. Jealous. He really thought I spent my life envying him. The guy who peaked in high school, who quit college after one semester, who couldn't stand not being the center of attention for one single evening. It would have been funny if it weren't so sad. I didn't reply. Instead, I saved the screenshot because that meltdown wasn't just about me. It was about him realizing he no longer had a mirror to reflect himself in. I'd stepped out of the background and now he was forced to see his own cracks. The fallout from his tantrum spread fast. He ran to my parents, claimed I was rubbing success in his face, said I was breaking up the family by refusing to come home for holidays. He even posted a Facebook status that vaguely accused me of manipulating people for clout, which again would have been laughable if it weren't so sad. But here's the thing about growing up under someone's shadow. Once you step out of it, they can't cast it anymore. I kept going. I finished the semester with a 3.8 GPA. My script got accepted into the fellowship. I spent the summer in New York working long hours for low pay but high experience. I met people who took me seriously. I worked, I learned, I watched how real productions worked. And every time I got on the subway or sat down at my tiny sublet desk, I reminded myself I earned this, every second of it. Back home, Jeremy spiraled. I didn't see it directly, but Kyle kept me updated. Jeremy was back at my parents' house, jobless, bitter, constantly starting fights. He even tried to restart community college, but dropped out after a month, blaming incompetent professors for his failing grades. He'd ran at my mom, complained that she let me get away with everything. Even though I hadn't asked them for a single dime since I left, my parents started calling more frequently not to apologize. No, they were still too proud for that, but with little guilt trips disguised as concern. "We miss you," Mom would say. "Jeremy's having a hard time." Dad once texted, "I know things got messy, but you're still part of this family." But I wasn't falling for it, not yet. They hadn't acknowledged what they did. They hadn't owned up to the favoritism, the dismissal, the years of silence. They just wanted things to go back to normal without earning the right to ask. And I had no intention of going back. Not until I was ready, and when I finally was. Let's just say I made sure my return wasn't quiet. There's a quote I heard once. "The best revenge is living well." It sounds wise, elegant, like something you'd find stitched on a pillow in your therapist's office. But the truth, that quote was written by someone who's never been humiliated by their own family on their 18th birthday. Someone who's never had to pretend they were okay, while the people who were supposed to love them forgot they even existed. Living well was a start, sure, but for me it wasn't enough. I didn't want to just escape the shadow of my family. I wanted to flip the lights on and show everyone exactly who had been standing in the dark all along. I wanted them to see me not as the quiet one, not as Jeremy's brother, not even as the one who moved out, but as the man who built everything without their help and still stood taller than any of them ever imagined. But first, I needed patience, planning, precision. Revenge isn't about rage. It's not about yelling or fighting or posting angry paragraphs online. That's what Jeremy did. And look where that got him. Broke, bitter, and stewing in his own self-pity at my parents' house. No, my revenge had to be quiet. I wanted them to invite it. I wanted them to watch it unfold and realize too late that they had orchestrated their own undoing. It started with a message from Maya. This was a few weeks after my summer internship ended. I was back at school prepping for junior year when she texted me. "Remember Alex from the film fest? He's launching something, wants to talk to you." Alex was a producer I'd met through Maya's short film the year before. Older, sharp, one of those guys who remembers names and shakes your hand like you're already important. I hadn't expected to hear from him again. We set up a video call. He was blunt. "I'm building a new digital production wing," he said. "Short-form documentaries, branded mini-films, social-first content, young talent, fresh eyes. I want you to be one of the writers." I blinked. "Wait, like paid?" He laughed. "Not a lot, but enough. And it's remote. You can do it while finishing school. You'd be the youngest on the team. You interested?" I didn't even need to think. Yes, 100%. The job wasn't glamorous at first. Writing voiceover scripts, drafting outlines for 5-minute human interest stories, fact-checking interview transcriptions, but it was real. It was industry, and I was making connections. I kept working my cafe job on weekends, but the digital gig gave me flexibility, and more importantly, credibility. That was phase 1. Phase 2 came when one of the directors in the studio circle, a guy named Rafi, took a liking to one of my short scripts. It was a quiet, introspective piece about a college student estranged from his family trying to build a life alone. I hadn't told him it was basically my autobiography. He said, "This is Teeth. You thought about directing it." I hadn't, not seriously, but the idea lodged in my brain like a match waiting to be struck. So I started planning. I spent weeks rewriting the script, tightening the dialogue, sharpening the emotional turns. I sent it to Maya, who gave me honest, brutal feedback and helped me polish it into something I was actually proud of. Then I submitted it to the Campus Film Fund. They gave me a $3,000 grant. Not much in film terms, but enough to get started. We began filming that fall. It was small, me, Maya, two actors from the theater department, and a borrowed camera from the club. We used campus buildings' dorms, and even a rundown diner off Main Street as shooting locations. I called it Second Son. I didn't tell anyone what it was really about, but I poured everything into that film. Every unspoken resentment, every quiet humiliation, every moment I'd been overlooked, minimized, passed over. It was all there in the script, in the performances, in the cold lighting, and the soft piano score. I spent 2 nights composing on GarageBand. The last scene was just a close-up of the main character sitting at his own birthday party, surrounded by noise and people utterly alone. The camera pulled back slowly until his figure was small, forgotten at the edge of the frame. When I watched the final cut, I cried. Not because I was sad, because it finally felt like someone saw me, even if that someone was me. We submitted the short to a regional student film festival. I didn't expect much. There were bigger productions, flashier stories, films with actual budgets and crews. But Second Son made the finals, and then it won. Best Short Film, Best Original Screenplay. A professor from another university came up to me afterward, shook my hand, and said, "That last scene, I haven't felt something like that in years." And here's where things started to get interesting. See, one of the judges on that panel was an alum from my old high school, a woman named Leia, who now worked in media consulting. She remembered my name not because of Jeremy, but because I'd been quiet and polite in her journalism class back in senior year. She reached out to me after the festival and said, "This might sound odd, but I know your parents." My stomach dropped. She continued, "They still live in Westwood, right? Nice people. Your brother, too." I didn't say anything. She smiled kindly. "Well, if you ever want help getting the film some press, small local papers, maybe an online feature, I know a few people." I thanked her politely. Then I went home and started thinking press, local feature, a spotlight back home. That was phase 3. I didn't want fame. I didn't want to be a social media darling or an indie darling or any kind of darling. I just wanted one thing. I wanted the story. The story they tried to erase me from, to circle back around and land right on their doorstep. So I sent a screener of Second Son to a small local arts blog that covers homegrown creatives. The writer, a guy named Dev, loved it, said it was a haunting, emotionally honest portrayal of generational silence. He published a piece on it the following week. It wasn't viral or anything, but it got picked up by the local town Facebook group, the same group my mom practically lived on. And suddenly everyone in Westwood was talking about it. Parents were tagging other parents. Teachers I hadn't spoken to in years left comments like, "I always knew Caleb was going places. Bow." Some of the parents Jeremy had been buddy-buddy with during his soccer days shared it with captions like, "Such a powerful piece." And from one of our own, even the high school guidance counselor who had worked alongside my mom shared the article, writing an incredible short film by a former student. Watch until the end. It hits hard. I didn't reach out to my parents. I didn't have to, because they reached out to me. The first message came from my mom. "I saw the article. You made a movie. Why didn't you tell us?" Then another. "People are saying it's based on your life. Is that true?" And then the kicker. "I feel like you're painting us as villains. That's not fair." I didn't reply. She called. I let it ring. My dad messaged me next. "This is a low blow. Whatever your issues are, airing them in public isn't the answer." Jeremy didn't say anything directly, but someone told me he posted a story on Instagram that said, "Some people build careers on lies." Congrats, I guess. Well, I laughed out loud when I saw it. They were squirming, and I hadn't even done anything to them. I just told the truth, framed in fiction, wrapped in cinematography and soft piano chords. And that was the moment I knew I had power. They had spent years controlling the narrative. Jeremy, the golden boy; Caleb, the quiet shadow, the second son. But now the whole town was looking at me. And the final piece of the setup that came when my university announced their annual alumni gala/showcase hosted in my hometown. The department chair reached out, said they were screening select student works as part of the event. Asked if I'd like to introduce Second Son personally before the viewing. It was being held at the Westwood Community Theater 3 blocks from my childhood home. I said yes. And then I rented 2 extra tickets. Because if there's one thing I've learned, you don't need to crash someone else's party when you can build a better one yourself and send them an invitation. There's a specific kind of silence that only exists in theaters. It's different from the silence of a library or a church. It's heavier. It hums. It's the collective breath holding of 100 people, all focused on the same frame, the same story. And on that night, the night my short film Second Son premiered in my hometown, I stood at the back of the Westwood Community Theater, watching an entire room sink into that silence. Rows of red velvet seats stretched out before me, filled with strangers and neighbors and teachers and students. But in the fifth row, a little left of center, sat three very familiar silhouettes. My mother stiff in her church blazer, my father arms folded tightly across his chest, and Jeremy slouched so far into his seat he looked like he was trying to disappear into the upholstery. I hadn't spoken to them in almost 2 years. No calls, no visits. The last words exchanged between us had been accusations, deflections, silence. And yet here they were. They had RVPD. I knew they would. The university had framed the event as a celebration of local talent. They put my name in the flyers. They shared the event online, and as soon as my mom saw it posted by the PDA president, who added a caption that read, "Excited to see what Caleb's been up to. Sounds powerful." I knew she wouldn't be able to resist. Not because she missed me, because she hated not knowing what people were whispering about, so she dragged them there, probably convincing my dad it was a show of support and bribing Jeremy with the promise of being seen in public. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. They were finally coming to my event not to hijack it, not to rewrite the story, but to sit in the dark and watch the truth unfold one frame at a time. The lights dimmed, the screen lit up, and then my voice filled the room. I had recorded the intro myself, a short message to the audience before the film began. My face appeared on screen, older now, calmer, sharper than they probably remembered. "Hi, I'm Caleb Wren," I said. I wrote and directed Second Son as a way to process silence, the kind that builds over years until you start to believe your voice doesn't matter. This story isn't just about me. It's about anyone who's ever been made to feel invisible in their own family. I hope it reminds you to listen closer, especially to the people you think you already understand. And then it began. The film opened on a quiet shot of a birthday party in full swing. Laughter, music, clinking glasses, but the camera lingered on one person, the protagonist. Seated at the edge of the patio table, half in frame, forgotten. As the story unfolded, the parallels were unmistakable. Scenes of favoritism, rewritten narratives, emotional neglect. Moments where the protagonist tried to speak up only to be brushed aside with phrases like, "Don't be so sensitive," or "Why can't you just be happy for your brother?" And then came the birthday scene, the final gut punch. The camera panned across the crowd, singing for the wrong person, the candles blown out by someone else, the protagonist standing in the background with a cupcake in his hand alone. There were gasps. A few people shifted in their seats. I glanced toward row 5. Jeremy was staring straight ahead, jaw clenched. My dad was stone-faced. My mom had her hand pressed to her lips, eyes locked on the screen like she couldn't look away, or maybe like she finally saw it. When the credits rolled, the silence remained heavier now, thicker than applause. Slow at first, then steady. I stepped forward from the back of the room toward the small podium near the screen. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice was steady, calm. No venom, no theatrics. This story was hard to tell. Not because I didn't know what happened, but because for a long time I thought maybe it didn't matter. I thought maybe the version of events I remembered wasn't important enough to say out loud. I looked directly at row 5, but silence has a cost, and sometimes the quietest people are carrying the loudest truths. So tonight I wanted to honor those truths. No one clapped right away. Not until I stepped away from the mic. But as I walked down the aisle, dozens of people reached out, shook my hand, clapped my shoulder, said things like, "That hit home," or "I saw myself in that," or simply "thank you." I didn't turn to see if my parents or Jeremy stayed. I didn't need to, because outside the theater, as I stood under the awning, soaking in the cool night air, I heard my name. Caleb. It was my mother. She approached me alone. My father and Jeremy were nowhere in sight. Her face looked pale in the streetlight, not from embarrassment, but from something heavier. Guilt, maybe, or the realization that the son she'd ignored had grown into a man she didn't recognize. That was a lot, she said. I said nothing. She looked down at her hands, then back up. "You could have talked to us." I raised an eyebrow. "I tried. You just weren't listening." She winced, but she didn't deny it. "Is that really how you remember things?" "Yes," I said with the sharp, unflinching certainty of someone who'd waited years to be asked that question. She swallowed. "I didn't know it hurt you that much." "Because you never looked," I replied. "Because you were too busy making sure Jeremy had the perfect life, even if it meant letting me disappear." She stepped closer. "You're not invisible, Caleb. We love you." I smiled, small and sad. Maybe, but love without effort is just decoration. She said nothing after that, just stood there, mouth parted like she wanted to say more. But there was nothing left to give, no apology that would fix it, no quick fix that would unwrite the years of neglect. so I turned and walked away. As I reached the corner of the block, I saw Jeremy standing near my car. He looked up as I approached, arms crossed, the same defensive scowl he always wore when he felt the ground slipping under his feet. "You happy now?" he asked. "You made us look like monsters." "I didn't have to," I said. "You did that yourselves." He shook his head, sneering. "All this just to prove you're better than me." I laughed genuinely. "No, Jeremy. All this just to prove I was here," and I left him standing there stunned in the glow of the theater marquee that still bore my name. In the weeks that followed, the film got picked up by an online streaming platform for student features. I started getting messages from people across the country, students, teachers, even therapists, all saying the same thing. This story mattered. Meanwhile, back in Westwood, the fallout was quiet but deep. My mom took a leave from the school. The guidance office restructured. PDA moms whispered. Former friends reached out less. Jeremy moved out of my parents' house 6 months later after what Kay later told me was a massive blow-up where he accused them of ruining his reputation. He bounced around jobs, tried a YouTube channel, failed at it, and eventually stopped posting altogether. And my dad, he never reached out. Not once. That told me more than any apology ever could. But me, I kept going. I graduated with honors, got hired full-time by the same production studio that gave me my start, moved into a small apartment with creaky floors and a view of the skyline that made every all-nighter worth it. I kept writing, kept filming, kept telling stories for the people who'd been made to feel small. And every year on my birthday, I light a candle. Not because I need a wish, but because sometimes the smallest flame is enough to burn down an entire false narrative. They built their story around Jeremy, but I wrote the ending. And this one's mine.